Hello Internet, and welcome to my first Magic the Gathering video where we get to talk about one of my decks that I've built. Yay! And the deck in question is right here. This is my first Commander deck that I've built. It's been modified quite a bit over the years, so this should be a stack of 99 cards. We are going to go through this in this video and talk about them, because the decks that I build are, for one, they're really just for fun, and they kind of show off either like collections or just fun ideas, mechanics, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun to run through these. Also, I've got perlers that I've made for these. This is actually the command zone for this commander we're going to be talking about today, and this deck, as you can see from everything themed here, is dragons. So I decided to have the same colors, the mana symbols, basically all of them, Ur-Megerd, and I tried to center the mana symbol used the most, which is mountains in this deck, and then the other two on the side, I probably used the second mount, so the islands and swamp, followed by plains and forest. And just to make sure that I have like a theme here, I made some dragon wings and a tail kind of coming up, mostly in purple, because it was different from the other mana symbols, and it didn't bleed into those too heavily. I made one of these for each of my commanders, just because I like the idea of building a command zone. And the commander itself, as we can see from the title, bam, right here. We're going to take a closer look at this, so I'm probably not going to go through every single card and read them for you, but we'll at least talk about them. And the commander is the Ur-Dragon, so 4 in Ur-Megerd, gives you a 10/10 legendary dragon. It has the ability Eminence. As long as the Ur-Dragon is in the command zone or on the battlefield, other dragon spells you cast cost 1 less to cast, 1 colorless. And this deck is all about exploiting the heck out of that and eventually getting the Ur-Dragon out. And then once you do, it is a flying, whenever one or more dragons you control attacks, draw that many cards, then you may put a permanent card from your hand onto the battlefield. But obviously we need to understand what the commander is so that we can understand how the deck itself is going to play. So let's put the Ur-Dragon down there, and before we get into just pulling cards out of the deck itself to start taking a look at these, they're all randomly shuffled, and we'll organize them here just in case you want to try and build something like this for yourself. I want to go through the tokens just really quickly to take a look at some of these. Now, for the most part, these are just different types of dragons that I'm going to be needing. Some of them are called for specifically. There's like Carrick's Blade Wing, there's a different type of Blade Wing in there, there's a couple different dragons that have Devour. I believe those are for the Dragon Broodmother, and then there's dragons that are flying of different power and toughness. This was a couple 6/6 ones. I say a couple, there's some 5/5s. I got these slowly from time, just from playing different types of sets. They generally grab all sorts of different sizes of dragons. And another type of card we're going to see in here eventually. These are actually kind of new, and I did hunt down some of these online so that I had all of the whatever they call these borderless versions of these cards, but these look really nice. These are effectively a weakened dual land, where when you're playing this, you can choose, do you want to have plains or do you want to have a swamp? And then you just place it down like that. And since they are dual-sided, I have to keep them out of the deck. And this should be a complete set of those dual lands. I call them dual lands. I think they're just called pathways. Each one of them has its own art. They look very, very nice. I really love these things. But because they are dual-sided, I can't put them in the deck itself. So instead, they're in these perfect sleeves, so they are nice and safe. And I keep these guys kind of set to the side. As we go through it, we're going to find cards that just have it written on there saying, okay, this is Bright Climb and whatever the other side of that guy said, Grim Climb, just so we know. And I can choose while I'm playing in the game, okay, I really need a swamp. And typically, as opposed to like an actual dual land, because of course I don't have that kind of money, or I haven't been playing that long. I mentioned in my previous video, I've only really been playing since like 08 or 09, I think. Really, the goal of this deck is try and get Ur-Megerd as fast as possible, and you're really just trying to say like, okay, I already have an island, so this other one can give me a mountain. Mountain's good, and you know, I'm just trying to get the other colors. It's not so much like the downside of this versus a dual land is, okay, well, I can't change my mind once it's down, it's down. First card we're drawing off here. I'm just going to do this completely randomly. I have no idea what we're going to be getting in here. And for the rest of the video, and just for now, I'm just going to move the focus inward. This top one we have is Wrathful Red Dragon. Now, this guy in particular is really awesome because he says whenever a dragon, blah, blah, blah. Since this is a dragon tribal deck, you just try and get as many things that say that as possible to have an excuse for why I was collecting dragons for so long. This one in particular says whenever a dragon you control is dealt damage, it deals that much much damage to any other target that is not a dragon, and more than likely they're not, because like I said before in another video, I don't really go to tournaments or anything, so the other decks I have don't have dragons in them, so that just applies to everything. Let's just put this here and we'll start making stacks for different mana types. Next card we got here, this is one of those examples I was just telling you about. This is what they look like. They're those alternates, so River Glide, Lava Glide, I can tell this one right away. We get water or fire, so or island and mountain, just to make a decision. I'm going to put this down and we'll have a land pile. Ramos Dragon Engine. Now I actually missed out on this commander deck when it did come out. The commander deck that actually sold, the Ur-Dragon and Ramos came with it. I remember it being in the shelves, I just didn't have the money at the time, and later I had to hunt them down, and for almost the same price as the original list price of the deck itself. Luckily someone was selling a lot with Ramos, Ur-Dragon, there was another card we're going to see later in the deck that was from that, and one of the Nicol Bolas cards. But still, it was a good deal considering how expensive these guys cost online now. Now, the big thing about having Ramos is if it's in a deck to try and pull out the Ur-Dragon, and it's obviously in a Wooburg deck, it's very easy to get the remove 5 counters ability that Ramos has here to pull Ur-Dragon out very quickly. Hopefully you'll have a chance to stop and read that if you want to read all of these. Like I said, we have 100 cards to get through. I'm really just going to quickly talk about them. There's a command tower. It's actually one of the newer ones here. Put that in our lands. Ooh, nice alternate art for Lohan Dragon's Legacy. Honestly, I don't even really remember this one as much because it's one of the newer ones. So this says, whenever you cast an adventure spell or a dragon spell, the adventure does not matter at all because we only have dragons in here. It will deal damage equal to that spell's mana value to any target that is not a commander. So this is really just one of those things that it's going to sit there and just start smashing heads really quickly from how many big creatures I'm going to be paying for, because remember, each one has one less CMC on it, which does add up very quickly because there's going to be a lot of ramp we're going to find in this, and also a lot of stuff like that. Once again, more land to get us lots of colors quickly. This, oh, I've had this guy for a long time. If you recognize that symbol, that was one of the original commander's symbols. It might have actually been the first one. This came with what ended up being Kim's commander, Bladewing the Risen. It's actually a really old card. This is an alternate art for it. I remember the old one as well, but this new one's pretty cool. So when Bladewing the Risen enters the battlefield, it may return target dragon permanent from your graveyard to the battlefield. That is just excellent. So if anything does die, and it will happen, boom, it just comes right back. The downside is he's not too strong. He's just a 4/4 flyer, and he has a very expensive +1/+1 buff. I've never really used that. This is really just to throw a very powerful dragon in, swing him early, and then just have Bladewing bring him right back if they end up dying. It's a 7 CMC. I'm going to organize this so later we'll zoom out and we'll take a look at all of them. Lightning Greaves. For some reason I haven't seen them print these anymore, but this is just one of the best cards ever because it has equipped 0, and you can just throw haste and shroud on everything the turn it comes out basically for free and save almost everything with shroud. I might be playing that wrong, but it says equipped 0 and you can do that at instant speed, and I love that. That is just so powerful. We have another one of those lands. This is the Hengate Mistgate. Like I said, I believe I have all of those in here, so just because I'm going through those really quickly, don't worry about it. Dragon Broodmother. I did mention we had those tokens for this. This one was actually really hard to hunt down. This card was expensive for a long time, and I managed to get my hands on it. I remember in Alara, I just unfortunately never found this one, but I really wanted it, and I'm really glad that I finally have one of these. So flying at the beginning of each upkeep, put a 1/1 red dragon creature token with flying and Devour 2 into play, and Devour 2 is where it can like start eating the others and get bigger and stronger. This isn't so much one of them that probably is really great for the deck, it's just the fact that it's here. I guess if there's cards in here that say like if more dragons enter the field, then blah blah blah, it does something, but since it's a token, I don't think it has a CMC cost, it probably wouldn't do so much, but still, there it is. I really like the card. And a lot of stuff in here is like that too. I just, like I said, I collected dragon cards for a very long time, and they could just be like, hey, I really liked this card, so I'm not taking it out. Honestly, I had Progenitus in this deck for the longest time because I just loved the card Progenitus, and I wanted to win a game with it. And I finally did. It took me a long time, but I finally did win a game with Progenitus, so I had to tell myself, all right, fine, he's going in the binder now. This is a Crumbling Necropolis. There's a lot of these in here too. Basically, there's it enters tap, so it's slow land, but I have one of 3 different colors, and this helps me early game, build up Bluebird colors. There's another one, Savage Lands. A lot of these I did actually just have from a long time ago from playing Magic, and luckily they matter because they don't seem to print these 3 colors very often. Teneb the Harvester, this is another one of those, I think this was an older dragon, I don't remember that set that I happen to have mine from, but yeah, there's a lot of them in this deck that'll do something that's effectively this. It's a flying 6/6 dragon. It says whenever it when it deals combat damage to a player, you may pay 2 in whatever 1 color. And if you do, and it just has an effect. This one in particular says if you do, put target creature card in a graveyard into play under your control. Best part about that is I can grab their stuff. So usually in the Dragons deck, if I'm winning, because the goal is to get big dragons as fast as possible. Boom, boom. Each turn there's another big one. And if I knock out any of their creatures, they have really good stuff. I just nab theirs and just keep winning. Unless things aren't going so well for me, in which case this isn't so helpful. I have to get my own stuff back. Here's the next one here. We have my foils. I'm glad we can see my foils because the other decks we have, some of them are in matte sleeves and the foils don't show up nearly as well. This is Broodmate Dragon. If you're not familiar with this one, it's a flying 4/4, but it enters the field with another flying 4/4 dragon. So it's effectively 2 for the price of 1, which also really helps for some of them that say however many dragons enter the battlefield this turn, which we will see some cards like that. Next off the top, we've got, check this out. I actually have the appropriate token for this. I had to buy it online to make sure that I could actually use this properly. But this is for Nicole Bolas the Ravager. I'm just going to put that token right here just so we can take a look at the actual card itself. And Nicole Bolas the Ravager is a flying 4/4. When it enters the opponent, each opponent actually has to discard a card. I usually just play one-on-one, so that would be very powerful in a group. Then a very expensive effect that effectively says you can flip this guy over and turn it into a Planeswalker, and now it's a very expensive effect. It almost never happens, especially in a commander game, but it's just a really cool card, and I always really loved Nicole Bolas, especially when he first came out. I do have the original card still, but this was in an M19 set when they did this, but I thought it was really awesome, and it's a very powerful Planeswalker if you can get to this point, because remember, first you have to get the dragon, play the dragon, have the dragon not die, flip him over with that expensive cost, and then finally get to use this guy. And usually it's by the end of the game. You're basically like, draw 2 cards, and maybe you could do one of those other things. You're not gonna do exile all but the bottom card of target player's library. Don't look at Planeswalkers and just look at their bottom ability. You're really mostly just looking at like the top 2. To keep Nicole out of the deck, I'm actually gonna put him down here and put this as our CMC card up here. Next off the top, we have another one of these lands. They're always very helpful to have in your hand, and this here is Kolagon, the Storm's Fury, I believe. A flying 4/5. Whenever a dragon you control attacks with creatures you control, get +1/+0 until the end of the turn. It's helpful enough. I'm not sure if it's for every single dragon, because a lot of times I'll just, as you saw, there's some of them that give me a lot of dragon tokens, and I'll try and attack with a bunch all at once. I believe that stacks for each one. It says whenever a dragon control attacks, so I believe so. And then it has this dash cost, which is basically the same of its actual cost. Play for the dash cost, it gains haste, and it's returned to the battlefield on its hand after that. It's really pricey for that. Honestly, I don't think I've ever paid that. I just usually pay things the slow way. I don't mind waiting as much in a game of Commander, so I would just pay the regular cost, accept that. If anything, I could have Lightning Greaves and just accept the haste anyway. Next off the top, we're looking at a Frontier Bivouac. 3 great colors. That's actually the colors of another Commander deck I have. We'll take a look at that one later. Hey, an actual straight-up Planeswalker card. This is Sarkhan Fireblood. Very cheap mana cost Planeswalker, and he actually really helps with dragons. So, +1, you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. I almost never do that one, because the other one's so much better in this deck. Add 2 mana in any combination of colors. Spend this mana only to cast dragon spells. As you noticed, I only really have dragon spells, so this is just like free mana, and he's going up when he does this. And then eventually, after doing it so many times, create 4 5/5 red dragon creature tokens with flying. That helps a ton. This is like a game ender. This is one of the best dragon-ish cards that's not a dragon card in the deck. I love this thing. What did we win? We have, this is a special dragon land. I had to get this one online as well. So by this point, I was in and out of Magic for the longest time, so I played a lot in high school, played a lot in college. There was a 4-year period or so where I wasn't playing at all, and this was during that period where I had to go back and hunt down a lot of the cards. So anyway, Haven of the Spirit Dragon, you can get 1 colorless or tap and get 1 of any color as long as you're casting a dragon creature spell, and then 2 and sacrifice a return target dragon creature card or Ugin Planeswalker card from your graveyard to your hand. I wish I had the Ugin Planeswalker card, but I do not. I really just use this for the any color for a dragon creature spell. If I'm desperate, I can return a dragon creature card from the graveyard to my hand. I've never done it before. Honestly, it's really just for the any color. And off the top, we have another one of these alternate ones. I believe it's from the Dungeons & Dragons stuff that they were doing. His axe is kind of in the way of his name. Thrakkus the Butcher, I believe. Trample 3/4. Doesn't even fly. He's just a dragon peasant. Whenever Thrakkus the Butcher attacks, double the power of each dragon you control until the end of the turn. This is one of those important ones who just needs to stay alive, because if I'm doubling their power, they are twice as intimidating and nobody wants to block them. Or rather, they want to block them and then they'll lose all their creatures, so very awesome one. This deck is all just about hitting hard constantly. As you can tell, there's not a lot of like safety stuff I put in here to like protect the dragons as much. I don't really honestly put too much of that stuff in my decks. It's mostly about just like play the big fun cards, and if I'm making the decks to play against each other, you just get to see a bunch of huge creatures bashing face into each other. Now, Ujutai, Soul of Winter. This is a very high cost, but it's a very good one. Flying Vigilance 5/6. Whenever a dragon you control attacks, tap, target non-land permanent an opponent controls. That permanent does not untap during its controller's next untap step. So this is whenever a dragon does it. So this is a game ender if I can get this guy out. There's a lot of stuff that lets me cheat dragons out, and you already see like Ur-Dragon's already about making the CMC 1 less. If I have other tricks around here that let me get dragons cost a little bit cheaper. Getting white is a little bit harder in here, but if I'm waiting all the way till I have 5 in white-blue, it's not a big deal. I get the color. I usually get my 5 colors like generally by turn 5 or 6. It's not hard in this deck at all. And yeah, it's a really big, strong dragon who also has vigilance and can block, so it really ends games, this one. He's tied for our highest so far too. He kind of deserves it. And this one, another high cost one. This is Atarka World Ender. Flying Trample 6/4. Whenever a dragon you control attacks, it gains double strike into the end of turn. This is another game ender because it is just so painful when they do that. Now, honestly, it's better if you could just like tap their side of the field and nothing happens with a Jutai, but honestly, just having double strike is more fun because you just get to see way more carnage and everything becomes twice as intimidating. Downside though, he only has a defense of 4. I say defense, but really it's toughness is what they call it in the game. Actually, he had the same mana as a Jutai. I'm not sure if I said that correctly before. Here's another one, Scale Lord Reckoner. He's whenever a dragon you control becomes the target of a spell or ability and opponent controls, destroy target non-lane permanent that player controls. I'm talking a little too quick for myself. Yeah, this is another really great one. Now, the only downside of this one, it's just such a good card for whenever a dragon blah blah blahs, but it costs 2 white, and white is probably the rarest color I have in this deck. It might actually be forest, but there's not a lot of white in here, so whenever I get a chance, this guy is awesome. However, he's not so easy to get out. Boy, do I have to go faster. Crux of Fate, it's a really great card. Basically says destroy all dragon creatures or destroy all non-dragon creatures. Guess which one I'm gonna pick. This is really just about wiping the field whenever something really bad happens, or if I lost all my dragons already, trying to even this playing field out. Crucible the Spear Dragon, another one of those really great mana sources for dragon cards. Effectively, I get colorless, or I can put counters on it so I can just fill it up and cast any combination of colors to cast dragons spells or activate their abilities. Typically, I'm just gonna be casting big dragons, trying to get the Ur-Dragon out as fast as possible. Obviously is really helpful, especially when I could just put down a bunch of free giant dragons out. Hey, this is actually a brand new one that just came out recently. Two-Headed Hellkite, 1 in Wooburg, Flying Menace, Haste. Whenever Two-Headed Hellkite attacks, draw 2 cards, 5/5. That's just good. It doesn't really help the other dragons, and there's some of them in here that are like that. They don't really help them as much, but it's just good, so I really like him anyway. Bingo! What do we got next? We got another one of those tricolor lands. Awesome. Shwing! Here's our next one. We have Corlessa Scale Singer. This is probably the cheapest CMC magic card in the deck. It is a 1/4 Dragon Bard. You may look at the top card of your library at any time and cast dragon spells from it if you choose. That is outstanding because it's basically most of the deck, as you see. So this is really just like draw an additional card. Schwunk. Here we got next is a Gruul Signet. I have a lot of these signets from older sets, and luckily these are some really great cards, and I'm surprised they aren't like regularly printing these things. These are awesome. Junk. Catharsis, Tyrant of Jund. I had this for a long time. Actually, I think I got this from a booster pack. It is a very expensive mana cost for a flying haste 7/7 dragon. Whenever Karthus, Tyrant of Jund comes into play, gain control of all dragons and untap all dragons. Other dragon creatures you control have haste. Really, this I don't really think I've ever had an instance where my dragons were taken from me and I had to get them back, but So unfortunately that ability hasn't really come in handy too often, but it's really just a big, strong dragon, makes your others stronger. Next one we have here is Kraosis the Purger. I believe this one's foil as well. This one is one of those dragons that is one of those flying 6/6s. It says it comes into play and pay this. If he does combat damage, choose a color, then that player reveals their hand and discards all cards of that color. Very cool. As you can already see, the mana curve in this deck is not so great. It's really just about like getting the big stuff out as fast as you possibly can. Obviously, like here, we have a great example of one of my low cost cards. This is just a goblin, but his ability is you get dragon spells that cost 1 less. So kind of the Eminence ability from Ur-Dragon, but on a creature, and I'm just going to stick him here and do 1 more mana. That's all that matters. The next one we got here is another Tri-Land, Mystic Monastery. Moving on from that, we've got the Scion of the Ur-Dragon. I have had this for a very long time. This is just a simple Wooburg. I say simple, but that's typically really hard to do. In a deck like this, though, as you can see with my mana base, I don't really have too much of a problem with it. Flying, and you can pay to search your library for a dragon card, put it in your graveyard. If you do Scion of the Ur-Dragon, it becomes a copy of that card till the end of turn. So based on the situation, I can basically steal any of the other dragon abilities, and then as you saw, I have ways to get dragons out of the graveyard, so this guy's awesome. Next up, we have is the Demanding Dragon. Demanding Dragon enters the battlefield, deals 5 damage to target opponent unless that player sacrifices a creature. Typically in Commander, that just goes through as damage, but yeah, whatever, he's pretty nice. We are gonna run out of room over there, aren't we? Alright, Dragon Speaker Shaman. Basically that goblin I showed you before, but it is 2 less to cast. Yay! This actually came in an old Dragon versus Knights deck, I believe, that Kim and I had a long time ago, so held on to that guy for a long time because he is still great. Okay, so there is a basic of every land in this deck, and I actually got my set that I'm using here, which are foils from the unset, and I really like the look of these things. I ended up getting an unset, I think it was for a birthday gift or something last year. It was a fun box they came up with. Maybe it was a couple years ago, but still. This next one we have is Killmouth Dragon. This is probably my biggest game ender dragon that I have in the entire deck. Maybe not the most expensive, I don't know, but I'm telling you, this one has won me the most games. I've had him for the longest too. He's from that same set. Now this guy is expensive, 5 and then 2 mountains, but amplify 3. This creature enters the battlefield, put 3 counters on it for each dragon card you reveal in your hand. Obviously, I will have a lot, and sometimes I'll intentionally not play something for a couple turns, just so that I can bring Killmouth out and have him come out as like a 20/20 and then give him haste with something and just tap him and deal 20 straight damage to a creature or player. Usually player, and it's devastating. Seriously, this ends the game. Usually when Kim sees me pull Killmouth out, she starts shuffling because the game's over. And next off the top, we have another Sarkhan Planeswalker. This one uses, what is that called? Teamer, I believe. He's draw a card, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. This is typically just for casting more dragons. Then he has the ability to make more dragons and effectively turn into one, I believe. Or no, you search your library for any number of dragon creature spells, put them onto your battlefield. Right, because I remember calling him Sarkhan the Broken because he's called the Unbroken. That's a little hypocritical considering a commander deck full of giant dragons, all of them coming out. I have gotten to do this before. However, it was an immediate surrender and the game was over, so... Yep, we're definitely gonna have to figure this out in a better way. So how about the land goes elsewhere? There we go, move the land a bit. Now, next off the top, we have Earthquake Dragon, another recent one. 14 colorless and 1 green for a 10/10 flying trample elemental dragon. But it costs X less to cast, where X is the total mana value of dragons you control. Very, very often, this number will end up being 14 or higher. There's a ton of them that I have in here, and usually they survive because they're so powerful. 2 and a green, sacrifice a land, return Earthquake Dragon from your graveyard to your hand. I haven't really had it die yet. Honestly, I haven't really gotten to play with it too much. The CMC says this is just going to be absurdly high, so let's just start another stack and put him here. Another one of those flippy lands. Yeah, we got one of these. Next, what is this? We got Palladium Wards the Ruiner is a flying vigilance trample 6/6, and it has hexproof if it has not dealt damage yet. Kind of a weird condition, but still just strong dragon for smash and face. Next up, I've got another one of those flippy lands, and then we've got ooh, this guy's great, Nullspine Dragon. I've had him since I think that's Shadowmoor. So flying 7/5, whenever Nullspine Dragon comes into play, you may discard your hand and draw cards equal to the damage dealt to target opponent this turn. Usually this is when I'm like only bringing him out and I know for a fact like I either Ajutide their side, or I have Killmouth and I'm about to tap it and just deal dumb damage to them directly and draw a dumb amount of cards. Lots of dumb. This card's lots of dumb. As you can see in here, color-wise, typically I mostly have a lot of red, though I do have some weird cards in here that are like this one, Varash the Hunter. This is another one of those generic, like flying 6/6 ones that says like once it deals damage, you can blah blah blah. They're all part of a cycle I think they made like back in the original Commander set they did. And this one just specifically says you can play 2 and a green. If you do, put 6 +1/+1 counters on him, so he basically doubles in sides. That's pretty cool. I've honestly never even done that yet. Usually the other dragons I have just better abilities. Oh, this is an old rare I've had that I've just kept using for a long time. Effectively one of any color. Don't worry about the rest of it. You can read it if you want. There you go. That's really how I use it. You can put charge counters on and get 2 for next turn, but it keeps flushing itself out. I don't really like that they made this card because it kind of goes in every commander deck, but basically a command tower mana rock that you can pay for. Arcane Signet. Next one here, we have another Ajutai, so you know it's going to be mean. This is Dragon Lord Ajutai. It has a much lower magic cost, however, it is a mythic, so you would think it's a little bit better. Flying, Dragon Ajutai has hexproof as long as it is untapped. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, look at the top 3 cards of your library, put one of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom in any order. So this is really about like trying to get better stuff out faster. It's okay. Honestly, I think that the rare one is just a lot better. Granted, the CMC cost on that one is like, it's way up here versus, you know, much less. This next card we got here, Utvara Hellkite. This thing is just mean. Flying 6/6, whenever a dragon you control attacks, put a 6/6 red dragon creature token with flying onto the battlefield. This is horrifying, because basically I just let him sit here. He almost really never does anything because I just want that rule to continue, and constant dragons attack. Notice it doesn't say a non-token dragon attacks, it says whenever a dragon attacks, so the tokens count, and it gets out of control really fast. I'll put him in that highest CMC for later, because he's one higher than the other ones. Oh, this one's really great too. Miriam's Sentinel Worm, I think that's how you're supposed to say it. Flying Ward 2, whenever another dragon a non-token dragon enters battlefield under your control, create a token that's a copy of it, except the token is not legendary if it's legendary. I really don't think cards should ever say that. If something is not legendary, make the token non-legendary or something, because you're bypassing the whole point of the legendary rule. It could really break things. I can feel this being a really good combo card. I don't really like combos as much, but still, this is really just to get double payment out of the dragons that I'm casting. Twice the bang for your buck. Get some more goodies. Here's another one of those flippy lands. What do we got next? We've got Varric's Bladewing. That first token that I showed you, Carrick's Bladewing, goes with this. If you pay the kicker, it will come out with another flying 4/4 legendary dragon, so very awesome. What do we got here? A Mana Confluence. I want to show this off. I actually found a foil of this, and it's one of the pricier cards I have in here. I don't pay too much attention to how much the cards cost, but I was curious on this one because this is a really nice land. Pay 1 life, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. It's very convenient, especially in a deck like this, and being foil, it costs quite a lot. I kind of want to switch it with something cheaper and sell that bad boy. Next we have is Vivictus Asmadi, the Dyer. This has a lot of text on it. You can pause and read it. Wow, that was good. Anyway, next one we got on here is the Skyclave Relic. This thing is effectively a way to get a bunch of tap 1 mana of any color relics on the field, and the kicker, I think, gives me 2 more of them. So, very nifty. Thing is that when you're trying to ramp mana, you usually don't have that much for the kicker, but still, if I have it later, it's a really great endgame thing. Now this, I actually had to seek this out online because I remember hearing about this. This is incredible. So for this really small human knight, for a 2 and a white, and a useless partner ability, this thing, basically the only important thing is at the very bottom. It says, dragons your team control have double strike. This might as well just be an enchantment that says, 2 and a white, dragons your team controls have double strike, and I'm sold. That's all I wanted. I don't care about the knight. The fact that it's a knight just makes it easier for you to destroy it. I just ignore that thing and hope that you don't kill him. Next one we have here is an Evolving Wilds to help me find one of those basic lands that I have in this deck. I swear that they're in here. I know we're getting deeper. Here's one of them. So here's the nice plains. You can kind of see that foil going across. I love these. Next card we got is an actual enchantment. Finally, I promise I have other cards in here. It's not just dragon creatures. Actually, this is all about dragon creatures. Dragon creatures you control get +3 3+3. Yay, bigger dragons. Next off the top, we win. Ooh, it's very nice mountain. Love that look. And the next one here, we've got Intet the Dreamer. And this, I believe, was the first of the cycle cards that I got. And this is honestly the wordiest of them all, so you can pause and read it if you like. Big dragon does a nice thing. Cool. Next one off the top I got right here is another one of those signets. This is probably the 2 most used colors in the deck. It might, yeah, I don't know, but my blue might be up there too, but yeah, definitely red is the most. And Dragon Tempest, another great enchantment. Whenever a creature with flying enters the battlefield under your control, it gains haste. So basically all my dragons have haste. Whenever a dragon enters the battlefield under your control, it deals X damage to target creature. Player X is the number of dragons you control. This adds up fast. Now, some of my dragons do not fly, but still, it's just like so much damage that it ends up doing over the course of the game. It's just great to have early. Oh, this I pulled from a pack. I was really excited about this. This is another one of those tap for any color or land. I think this came from that giant monsters theme one. They had the Godzilla crossover with had the mutate thing. I don't remember the name of the set. Anyway, Okagachi. This guy was the third of the cards that came with the Ur-Dragon. That was an option for the commander, though you would be a fool not to use the Ur-Dragon. I think that thing's one of the best commanders they've ever made, though it might even be too good, honestly, because it kind of encourages you to use Wooburg even if you don't need Wooburg. But still, this is a really great one too. 1 in Wooburg, Flying Trample. Whenever Okagachi deals combat damage to a player, if that player attacked you during their last turn, exile a non-land permanent that player controls. You can just slowly get rid of their stuff and just encourage them to stop hitting you, and if they stop hitting you, you're just going to hit them harder. As you can see, the mana curve, and this is all wonked out, but that's just the way that the deck works. A really huge one, Hellkite Overlord, Flying Trample Haste. I've had this for a long time. I believe I got this from a pack as well, back in Alara. So, really awesome, very powerful one. Hey, and next we have Balefire Dragon. I actually got 2 of these. I think I pulled both of them out of packs. It's a really strong flying 6/6. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, it deals that much damage to each creature that player controls. Each. It's so strong. And we're still filling up the end of the CMC there. Boy, I've got a mess going for me. Ooh, a nice old one that I have, Dragon Arch. This I've had probably since I started playing the game, and I always wanted a good reason to use it in my dragon deck that I wanted to build. When I was, a friend was teaching me how to play the game, he said, I mean, do you like goblins? Do you like merfolk? Do you like elves? Tell me anything, you can build a deck in Magic about it. I said, I like dragons. So he's like, okay, cool. And this was one of the first cards that I ended up finding, and even though it doesn't say anything about dragons, I never wanted to take it out of my dragon deck because it's kind of special to me, even though it really doesn't matter too much. But still, reading what it actually says, it should get scarier and scarier, because back in, I think that was like Odyssey or something like that, this card wasn't so great. It was kind of meh. But nowadays, with all of the multicolor cards in here, if you were reading it, this thing is OP. 2 and tap, put a multicolor creature from your hand into play. Busted. Because yeah, I'm gonna be spamming that every single turn. Another one of those tri-lands, so the Arcane Sanctum. We got another one here, Romaka the Eternal. Whenever a dragon you control attacks, bolster 2, which effectively I'm like putting +1/+1 counters on the weakest ones of them to make sure that they're strong enough to keep fighting. Next up we have this is actually one of the newer lands I've got here. It's an indestructible tap for anything, but it will convert 5 mana into Wooburg. Now the only downside is you're technically losing 1. If it said 4, because this counts as, one of your lands for your turn, so you're being put back 1, but still having Wooburg helps a ton. So pretty good. I actually don't think I've gotten to use this one yet. I put it in recently. And that's another thing. I am modifying these decks all the time. Another tri-land right there. So I will find new dragons, or sometimes just collect new really good lands, and I'll switch them out and move things all the time. This is just how it stands at this moment at the end of 2022. Silumgar, the Drifting Death. This one has another one of those, whenever a dragon you control attacks things, creatures defending player controls gets -1/-1 till end of turn, and that stacks as well. Yummy. And he has hexproof and wonderful toughness. This thing is just irritating. I don't remember it particularly winning me a game, like, outright from damage, but I know that, like, it discourages so many attacks and defenses in general just from being so annoying that it eventually wins me the game. Next one you have is another Signet. Is it Signet? I love this one. So I was just saying that might be the 2 most used colors in the entire deck, but I'm not sure. There we go, just making sure we had some more room here, because for some reason I don't really have a lot of 3s and 4s that we're running into so far. Also, I don't think I have anything that's a CMC 1 in the deck. We'll see when I get there. Glorybringer. Kim hates this thing. So this thing has Exert, and I don't have anything else that has Exert, but effectively I can choose to exert this thing when it attacks, and it just deals 4 damage to a non-dragon dragon creature an opponent controls when it does that. However, I believe when it exerts, it like doesn't untap for the next turn. Yeah, it says it down there. The next untap step, it does not untap, but still, since it comes out with haste and I can do that, it's just like it's a nice surprise. Boom. Hit you really hard and really fast kind of things. Helpful. Didn't mean to drop you. Next one we have here, Darigaz Reignited. This one's also kind of wordy. Lots of text, you can read it. It's another one of those. Cool. That Big's Dragon hit stuff. Man, ooh, scary. Next card we got here is this very pretty island. Ooh, look at the pretty island, everybody. Pretty island. Next, what do we win? We have a Bulgarian Hellkite. This was the cover dragon that they had in that Dragon vs. Knights deck way back when, and it was a flash flying 5/5, enters the battlefield, and you can just basically choose 5 damage where you want to put the 5 damage that he just for free gets to attack with. You can put all of it into the opponent's face, or you can use it to destroy a bunch of creatures on the field. It's a very expensive card, but since it can flash and do that, you can kind of use this as a way to like destroy creatures and say, no, that doesn't happen, or stop something. Because as you can see, there's not really a lot of checks in this deck. This deck lets the opponent do whatever they want because this doesn't stop hitting. And that's kind of its weakness, honestly. But still, cards like that give it a little bit more of a leeway when it goes back and forth like that. Prosh, Sky Raider of Care, is another one that has a lot of weird text to it, basically a bunch of little baby tokens and whatnot, and you can sacrifice and make them slightly stronger. Whatever, you can read it. There we go, we got another one. What do we got next? The Forest. The whole gang is here. And next up we have is Malfegor. This is another one that's really great and kind of ends games. Flying 6/6, when Malfegor enters the battlefield, discard your hand. Each opponent sacrifices a creature for each card discarded this way. This thing, look at like how late in the game it's already going to be coming out. I've usually got several dragons by that point, and if I just wipe your field and then everybody attacks, it doesn't just end the game. It like puts you back so far that typically no one recovers from that. A really strong one. However, it's pretty hard to get that like 2 black and 2 red. Luckily, there's a lot of options to get both in here, but still, it's a little tough. Next up, we've got another one of these alternate lands. This guy is Niv-Mizzet Reborn. I had another Niv-Mizzet in here before, but I've taken him out. You'll eventually see that card. Just for a single Wooburg flying 6/6, it's kind of confusing what it says down there. I've figured it out. I have to explain it to Kim every single time it happens. Whatever, pause, read it, there you go. Next up, we have another one of those Tri-Lands. Awesome. Crowd goes wild. Next one we have here, ooh, Fabled Passage. Another really great land. There it is. You can read it. I actually got that in a pack, I think. That was one of the few times I went to like a pre-release event. There's another one of those lands. And I went for, oh, what was that fairy tale one called? Whatever, the fairy tale set. And yeah, that was one of the cards I got in the packs when I was playing it. Hellkite Courser. This guy is mean. I want to read this one. Flying 6/5. Whenever Hellkite Courser enters the battlefield, you may put a commander you own from the command zone onto the battlefield. It gains haste. Return it to the command zone at the beginning of the next end step. What this means is horrible. So basically, no, it's one off of this. So for 5 mana, I am getting, this guy doesn't even matter. I am getting the Ur-Dragon on the field by turn 5. And it's so horrible. Because like he also has haste, so he gets to attack on that turn. Another dragon comes out for free. This card should have been costed so much higher. Well, I mean, I guess this is like the best payoff you can ever get with it is bringing the Ur-Dragon out with this thing. But still, if you have an Ur-Dragon commander deck, this is probably the most important card to put in there. This thing is stupid good. As in, like, by the time I cast that thing, like, I'm so far ahead because of what the Ur-Dragon just got me that the game is usually over. Oh yeah, this was the pre-release card I got for doing that event that I was just mentioning at Thrones of Eldraine, that was it. Opportunistic Dragon, this foil guy. When Opportunistic Dragon enters the battlefield, choose target human or artifact an opponent controls. Usually I'm just choosing an artifact, obviously. For as long as Opportunistic Dragon remains on the battlefield, gain control of that permanent, it loses its abilities and cannot attack or block. So I could just shut down their mana rocks or anything, and Kim has an artifact deck, actually, so this can yoink one of her best cards away from her. And look at that, a lower CMC, finally. Sorry if my lamp's in the way, but it's only blurring some of that stuff in the background here. Niv-Mizzet Draco Genius. This is not the other Niv-Mizzet I was talking about, but I have a third one, the original one, but still, this is another one. Basically, he just deals damage to the player every time you draw a card, I think, and you can, like, kind of pay to keep drawing cards, or no, the reverse. The other Niv-Mizzet does that. This is like the reverse of the Niv-Mizzet. Whatever. There's so many Niv-Mizzets, and they all effectively do the same thing. Wow. Yeah. There's no mana curve in this deck. It's just a mana mess. But I promise it works. It still works. I have a lot of fun playing this deck. It's one of my favorite ones to play. Chromium the Mutable. This is a really expensive one who has mostly like a lore ability that he does there that I don't really do, but it's a flash flying 7/7, can't be countered, and that's just good enough if you actually want to flash something for that much mana. But there you go. We are almost done here. The next one we have is Dragon's Horde, a really nice artifact for a dragon deck. Whenever a dragon enters the battlefield under your control, put a gold counter on the Dragon's Horde. You can tap it, remove a gold counter, and draw a card, or just tap to add 1 mana of any color. So you get mana. It's like a mana ramping ability and a mana, like you can get any color that you want. That is super helpful. And then the fact that I can just draw cards later in the game for it, this is so good. And look, it's filling out. There's the 3. There's a 3. Another one of those alternate lands. And oh, this is so good. I discovered I had this a long time ago, and apparently I had never been playing it. I was just going through my cards, and maybe we'll find some cool thing in my binders when I get to my upcoming videos of things like this that I just need to be playing. This is back from Innistrad, I believe, or Avacyn something. That's Avacyn's symbol down there. But anyway, 2 and a green. At the beginning of your upkeep, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature card that shares a creature type with a creature you control, a dragon, you may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Otherwise, put that card on the bottom of your library. And that happens constantly, as you can see. So this thing, just for like no mana, has dragons popping out constantly, and it's really like a roulette. Like early game, if I can start landing some big ones for free, oh my goodness, this thing is very good. See, that's something you wouldn't think to put in a dragon deck, because it's like this picture of like a forest and a little girl. Soul Ring has to go in every single commander deck. Unfortunately, it's one of those cards that is like a little too good, but it's legal in commander, so you gotta play it. I'm gonna put that guy way over here. I think it's our only one CMC card, because we only have 3 left. We have another one of those signets. I think I'm playing like most all of my signets that I own. I'm not sure. Oh, I actually forgot about this one. Sarkhan the Masterless. This was from War the Spark. He just has a static ability. Whenever a creature attacks you or planeswalker you control, each dragon you control deals 1 damage to that creature. So it kind of eventually like starts dealing damage to them. And yeah, this is the one where he can turn himself into a dragon and just create dragon tokens. So very helpful for just making the deck do what it does. 2 left. This one, Lathless Dragon Queen. This one is very good. Flying 6/6. Whenever another non-token dragon enters the battlefield under your control, create a 5/5 red dragon creature token with flying. And all dragons you control get +1/+0 until end of turn if you pay 1 and a red. And you can repeatedly do this. So this one is very good. It's effectively that one that I showed you earlier that lets me like bring out constant dragons. This one unfortunately does say non-token dragon, so it doesn't start stacking onto itself. Well, this is also saying when it enters the battlefield, not when they attack. So even still, it's still very, very good. Woof, and the last one I have in this deck is the Felloar Stone. You can tap, add 1 mana of any color that a land an opponent controls could produce. Since we're playing Wooburg, everything's helpful, so I do not care what you have, I am taking it, thank you very much. And that is it, my friends. There you can actually see this absolute disaster of a non-existent mana curve that I have on here. But yeah, the deck itself is really, most of these cards in this region are just about like, get me mana or tricks to make my dragons that are coming up soon. Like, I need the mana as fast as possible and set up some stuff quickly. There's not a lot of stuff to protect the dragons, there's just more dragons to compensate. So even if you start killing some of them, I'm constantly bringing more of them out. So this strategy-wise, I don't think it's that great, of course, because there's not a lot of stuff to protect them. It's really just about, like, hitting hard as fast as possible with all 5 colors, and of course, getting the Ur-Dragon out as fast as humanly possible, and making sure that when it's out, it stays out, and it's gonna keep smashing like just obliterate the other side of the field, and hopefully they won't have answers by the time we've already depleted their life to 0. But I've only played it on one-on-one. It does win a lot in one-on-one. I really like the deck. But let me know what you guys think. I know it's probably a complete disaster because there's not a lot of stuff that protects the dragons, but hey, like I said, I don't really play in tournaments, but even if I was, what would you recommend that I do for this? Or are there any any cards in here in particular that I should be probably switching out with something else? Or is there any cards in particular that you have that you think would work really well in this dragon deck? Either way, let me know what you think down in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for joining me for this for fun video where I get to just show and tell some of my Magic cards. I'm excited to do a bunch of these because I have a lot more, trust me, but this one was probably the biggest because I had an ongoing dragon collection. I just happen to be collecting dragon cards throughout Magic's history as I was playing, and of course a lot of old ones in here that I just don't play anymore, like the original Elder Dragons set. I have all of those. I have the original Shivan Dragon, however it's not the original. I think I've got one from like, it's not unlimited, it might even be unlimited, I don't remember, but I have some really old ones. It's probably like 4th or something like that. But still, anyway, a lot of fun with these. I will show you the rest of the dragon collection, but this is just what is playing in the deck itself. Hope you guys enjoyed. I will see you in the next one.